Thank you, Janet. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this fifth edition of the EASA High-Level Conference on Drones, together with the Amsterdam Drones Week. The grand opening, I guess most of you attended that, and the Drones Week always provides a special setting for our conference. And you may wonder why we chose the title "Back to the Future," and it's I will go over the history of our conferences on drones in a moment, but you will soon realize that this is my last drones conference as executive director of EASA, as my mandate is expiring in August of this year, and it has been a great honor for me to be part of this journey. And in fact, I thought, just when I'm leaving, it's good to have a look back at what we did and try to project from this introspection into what happened in the last years to look at the future. And that's why we gave this title to this conference of Back to the Future. So we started actually, Henrik, you remember that, I'm sure, in 2015 in Riga with the first drone conference in 2015 with the Commission. It was under the Latvian presidency of the European Union. And in 2016, we had this conference done in Warsaw with the Commission. It was, again, during the Polish presidency, and we did it in a very nice setup in Warsaw, I remember. In 2017, we had a conference in Helsinki together with the Commission and hosted by Trafi at that time. And we started in 2018 to have this a partnership with RAI. And I would like to really express my thanks to RAI and to the Dutch government for their support. We have all worked hard to fulfill our set objectives and commitments in each high-level conference on drones and to present the results in the following conference. And I know I have friends from Singapore, Kahan, I don't know where you are somewhere here, who told me that he was coming every year to our conference, and it was astonishing to see, the progress made every year on what we were doing. And that's basically the goal that we have set to ourselves every year, to explain to you what we have done in the past year, what we plan to do in the next year, and every year to review the progress made. So I think we have done a lot of work, and hopefully you have seen the value of doing that. Of course, the COVID pandemic disrupted this cycle, and we didn't have a conference in 2020 and 2021, but I can assure you that EASA continued to work on UAS, and we were able, I hope, to demonstrate that to you in Amsterdam last year. And unfortunately, another year has passed very quick. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, another year has passed very quickly. And once again, we are in front of you, together with the Commission, the Member States, and the drone community, in basically discussing about the progress made and what we have achieved. A major milestone compared to last year was the publication by the Commission of the EU Drone Strategy 2.0 that Henrik will present to you, I guess, in more detail. But on behalf of EASA, I would like to say already that this strategy is a great achievement that defines our objectives and tasks in the area of UAS for the next 5 to 10 years. Before I continue and go into some more details of the work that we have done in the last year, we have a short video summarizing our progress. We can go for the video. that they make a difference by adding value to their lives. So this video presented our past journey, but also includes some of the more recent achievements since our last meeting in March 2022. I will go into some more details to explain to you what we have done since the last drone conference. But what is interesting is when you look at the declarations, the first declarations were all about the promise, you know, what we hope will happen with the drone new business and things like this. And gradually it became, you know, we are tasking EASA to do this, to do this, to do this, to have a regulatory framework to be ready by 2019. And I think, I don't know what will be the result of our discussions today, but I think we will be more into the deployment implementation. How can we support implementation? How can we go faster and so on and so forth? So these conferences indeed have helped us take stock of the progress not only made by EASA but also by the entire drone community, and I think it's a very relevant tool to assess the progress made, and I'm very grateful for that. So let me go into some details of what we have achieved in the last year, and sometimes it's a bit technical what I'm going to say, but I think since I'm the only EASA presenter on this session who is going to present to you the whole package of what we did, we thought that we needed to be a bit more specific and technical. So I apologize for that. So starting with the open and specific category for drones, we have created, together with the member states, what we have called an EASA technical advisory body. What we realized in this community is that there is a lot of things to discuss, there is a lot of cooperation to work together in order to make things happen. And we have another example on USSP, but what we decided to do was basically to establish the fora which allow for these conversations, these discussions to take place, so that we help each other, we learn about best practices on how to implement regulations. So this technical advisory body is basically discussing about implementation issues to facilitate harmonized implementation of regulations and use of best practices. As mentioned in the video, and that's something which is really the start of a new era, we started in the summer of 2022 what we call standardization inspections. Standardization inspections are basically inspections of the member states to look at how they are implementing EU law. And we started that in 2022 in the summer. And it was very important and interesting because this is a brand new field, brand new regulations. It was interesting to see how the member states were implementing those new regulations, and we have done that in order to support a harmonized implementation of the drones regulation across the EU. There were a lot of comments, reactions on those new regulations, which were, okay, the regulations are what they are at a high level in practice. We need to have practical guidance on how we implement the rules. And in order to help the community to apply the rules, we published new guidance material, AMCs and guidance material to the drone regulations, including 3 additional applications of SORA, or predefined risk assessment. We also published the means of compliance for special conditions for light UAS, which enables the agency to support the issuance of airworthiness certificates for small UAS and also help with the issuance of the design verification report. We didn't have before this notion of design verification. So we were in a stage where basically states were delivering operational clearances, operational approvals, but without, in a number of instances, having the technical competence to look at the design of the vehicle. And that's what we offered with this notion of the design verification report. We offered drone manufacturers, but also member states, to do a kind of a safety assessment of the design related to the specific types of operations that the drone was going to operate in. And we've done that for 4 different drone types. In the last year, we issued 4 design verification reports. We also supported, for instance, the Hellenic CA. I saw Mr. Tsitsouras here somewhere for the issuance of their own operational authorizations. For example, in the case of Greece, it was for coastal surveillance operations which were performed by our sister agency Frontex. So we worked together with Frontex, with which we have a partnership agreement. We worked with the Hellenic CA in order to see how we could make a safety assessment and help the CA, support the CA in delivering an operational authorization for the Frontex operations in the Hellenic airspace. We also have published, and I think we are the first ones to do that in the world, a methodology for measurement of drone noise, which will help, we hope, in addressing societal concerns as identified in our societal study that we performed some years ago. You may recall that as a result of this study, the number 1 concern for the public was, of course, safety, but number 2 was environment and in particular noise. And we still want to continue to work on this notion of noise, and it was important to have a new methodology because the drone noise is not comparable to the traditional aviation noise, and we wanted to have a specific framework in order to allow for the measurement of drone noise. And finally, and I think that's one of the most attended webinars that we organized a workshop on SORA, which attracted more than 1,400 experts, again explaining how in practice to implement and to publish the SORA. If we turn now to U-Space, as already announced last year, the agency has been working very hard to deliver the acceptable means of compliance and guidance material to support the implementation of the EU space regulation. As we have heard already this morning, the EU space regulation entered into force on the 26th of January of this year. And in order to help its implementation, we again set up a group of dedicated experts, and we worked a lot of very long hours to reply to all the comments received during the consultation process and to update the set of guidance material that were published with our decision just before the Christmas break. I believe this was a great achievement for the drones community, and we expect now that the first U-Space airspace will be designated in Europe as from the fourth quarter of this year. In parallel to this work, we have taken additional actions. We established a task force with the member states, also supported by Eurocontrol, with the view to harmonize the approaches for U-Space service provision and the single common information service providers certification. This is new. We are all on the same boat, and we will all be faced with the implementation of the regulation and with the certification of service providers. And we need all to help each other in working together the path of certifying in a harmonized way those service providers. And that's the reason why we created this task force with the member states in order to have best practices, common approach to the certification of service providers for U-Space. The task force will deliver its results by May of this year, and we expect it to be very practical. So compliance checklists, list of evidence, guidelines for authorities for initial certification and continuous oversight, application forms, procedures for onboarding process or frequently asked questions. So we intend in this task force to be very practical and to have a set of material that can be used by applicants but also by the member states for the certification of service provision. Even if the results of this task force will not be binding, this is really, it's not even guidance material, it's help and support. We expect that those deliverables will be used by the competent authorities and applicants, and that will enhance harmonization and cooperation. We have also started to prepare ourselves as competent authority for the certification of service providers that have their principal place of business outside of the EU, but aim to provide their services within the EU. Several applications. What's the number? 5? 6? 4 ongoing, plus certain prospects. We have received a certain number of applications, and we are working on the certification of those service providers. Finally, on U-Space, we will be hosting a workshop in the middle of June this year, in which we will perform a deep dive into the guidance material as well as the results of the USSP certification task force. As it was the case for the drones regulation, since the new U-Space regulation have entered into force in 2023, we will need to start preparing for the inspections of the member states to ensure the harmonized implementation of U-Space regulation. This will going to start to take place in 2024 and 2025. In the area of certified categories, so the bigger drones and manned eVTOL operations that enable innovative air mobility and innovative aerial services, we published the draft regulatory proposal for consultation. We proposed the establishment of a comprehensive regulatory framework to address new operational and mobility concepts that are based on innovative technologies such as unmanned aircraft systems and aircraft with vertical takeoff and landing capability to foster and promote their acceptance and adoption by European citizens. We are proposing amendments to existing EU aviation regulations and the creation of new regulations to address, in particular, the initial airworthiness of UAS subject to certification, the continuing airworthiness of UAS subject to certification and operated in the specific category, and the operational requirements applicable to manned VTOL-capable aircraft. And the objectives of those amendments are to ensure a high and uniform level of safety for UAS subject to certification and operated in the specific category and for operations with VTOL aircraft. It's also to enable operators to safely operate manned VTOL-capable aircraft in the single European sky, to promote innovation and development in the field of IAM while establishing an efficient, proportionate, and well-designed regulatory framework. And finally, to harmonize the regulatory framework across the EU member states by enhancing clarity, filling the gaps, and removing inconsistencies that are inherent to fragmented regulatory systems. This consultation was published last year? This year? Last year in December, I think, yes. June. We received 1,300 comments from 60 different organizations, among which 300 comments were raised by national authorities. In general, the comments were, I would not say that they were not questioning our approach. They were more on adding precision to the definition of the concepts in innovative aerial services and innovative air mobility, definition of the VTOL capable aircraft, the approach to the new Part IAM in the OPS regulation, and so on and so forth. So it was not comments which were challenging what we were proposing. It was more comments which were asking us to be more precise in some definitions. We are, of course, we have reviewed all the comments, and we are updating our regulatory proposal. And the target is that we finalize our opinion that will be delivered to the European Commission after the summer break of 2023. The summer break in Germany is in July, so that means in August. That's the target, Maria, August, before I leave. That's my point. Okay. We believe that our opinion would set the scene for the first movers to obtain early authorizations using either exceptions or using tools such as the regulatory sandbox tool, because as we heard this morning, one of the main priorities will be the Paris Olympic Games in 2024. We are not certain that the new regulations will be published and certainly will not enter into force before summer 2024, but at least it will provide guidance on what is expected to become EU law. So we hope that for the French CAA, for the operators, it will give a good guidelines to how to apply the different schemes. One major point, and I think it's something that we saw in our study on UAM acceptability. We are, with this new mode of mobility, touching a public which is not our usual public. It's cities, it's the citizens living in cities or around cities. So basically the approach to how we reach out to those new categories of actors is very different from what we are used to do in aviation. And in order to help on this, we have received a mandate from the European Parliament and from the European Commission to design and deliver a tool which would support local bodies in how they can implement IAM and UAM. We call it the IAM Hub. It's a web-based tool which basically will be accessible to the professionals, that means the city planners, but also, of course, the aviation stakeholders, but also be accessible to the citizens in order to basically explain what is in the regulations, explain what is needed in order to make sure that the different operators have the right approvals, and help the planners in looking at what are the specific constraints on the urban and innovative air mobility. For this project, we have the support of external consultants, and we have, again, but my colleagues at EASA know that very well. I'm a specialist of task forces, so we have established a task force of the different IAM stakeholders to further support the agency with this project. And in task force, we have representatives of the cities, we have representatives of operators, ATC, and so on and so forth. So we have all the stakeholders represented in this task force. We delivered the results of the IAM hub when? Before the end of 2024. That's the mandate that we received. And I'm just repeating what Maria is saying. Huh? We'll have something available for testing, Kai, when? End of the year. Can you do before the end of August as well? Yes, thank you. So we continue to work with standardization bodies such as EuroKA, and also support the CESAR joint undertaking and national research institutes in looking and helping in research and demonstration activities. So I'm sorry it was a bit long, but we thought that we have done a lot. The drone team of EASA has done a lot in the last year, and I just wanted to pay tribute to their work and explain to you in detail what they have been achieving in the last year. We have been quite busy, and I hope that what we have been doing so far is fulfilling your expectations. As I mentioned earlier, the EU Drone Strategy 2.0 was published by the European Commission in November last year, and it contains many of the actions that the agency has already undertaken and is working on, as I hope I could show to you in my speech. It includes many very concrete and necessary actions that need to be taken to truly support the European drones industry. And it's important that we continue to work with you, all the stakeholders in task forces or in other formats, to prepare those actions and make sure that we can implement those actions in time. You know, when one of our first drone conference, the industry, the stakeholders were saying, you know, EASA, you are very slow in your rules. You take a lot of time to develop new rules. And I think that now a lot of stakeholders are telling us, actually, you are too fast. You go too fast. Please slow down, because we can't follow the pace. And I hope that we were able in the last 5 years, in the last 7 years, to fulfill the expectations of the community and to help develop the drone business in Europe. And that's really the hope that we can continue to do that for the next 10 years. It's now a great honor and pleasure for me to give the floor to Henrik to talk to us about whatever you want to talk to us about. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and the ladies and gentlemen, drone connoisseurs. It's a great pleasure to be here today in this inspiring venue, and once again, Rai went above and beyond to present us with a wide sample of new drone technologies, and let me express my appreciation for their great work that has brought us here. I also would like to pay tribute to Patrick and Maria and the team in EASA. What you have been doing, it is remarkable. I think it was very good to have this snapshot of what has been delivered. And of course, I am also very happy that the drone strategy, which has been quoted so many times today, is giving you more work to do. So you are exactly the right partner to deliver on that. Very much thanks to you, we also have this ecosystem and the framework which puts Europe in front of the rest of the world. And you know, and I've said it more than once, but I don't stop repeating it. It's a great feeling and a unique opportunity to be part of creating something new and laying the framework for something that has a huge future perspective. When liaising and talking to this community, I find it so different from the rest. there is a can-do attitude. The glass is more than half full, and the proactive approach comes together with incredible enthusiasm. I wish all the transport modes would be like that. But this should also inspire us further in creating an enabling framework with the highest level of safety and security, with the minimum level of obstacles and bureaucracy, which delivers new industrial potential and new business opportunities. And here also the beauty lies. You have to get the balance right. How many times do we hear that? Very often. And that means that we have to regulate, but we cannot overregulate, because it is also a new area which is developing very fast. By overregulating, we could actually put a stop to the innovation. So delicate balance, and fingers crossed, so far, so good. And I'm proud that we have been thinking out of the box and have been taking a very proactive stance at the early stage. This means that today the EU has taken the global lead in developing the necessary regulatory framework for all kinds of drone operations, be it urban air mobility or innovative air mobility or simply parcel delivery drones. It is now very much in the hands of our member states, city authorities, and the business itself to make things happen and to make this framework a genuine enabling framework for all business activities. And there are significant opportunities, as it is estimated that by 2050, over 70% of the world's population will be living in cities, which calls for innovative forms of transport to meet the increasing demand from the public, to address ever-increasing mobility needs, as well as deliver efficiently available public services. But it's also the people who want to live in a more sustainable environment and who also are there in order to disrupt the traditional mobility services. Sorry. Against that background, and building on the work of the European Drone Leaders Forum, the Commission adopted in November last year the Drone Strategy 2.0 to create a smart and sustainable unmanned aircraft ecosystem in Europe. And now we have a collective responsibility to make sure that, thank you very much, that these operations can have a real takeoff, be it vertical or not. In order to make innovative air mobility a reality, the drone strategy will further advance the risk-based, operation-centric approach that has underpinned the development of EU's regulatory framework for drones until now. The objective of the Commission is to develop a predictable regulatory environment, reduce business risks, and provide favorable investment climate to enable safe and sustainable development of the innovative air mobility in Europe, resulting in regular transport services of goods and passengers by 2030. The vision set out in the strategy foresees that by then, drones and their required ecosystem will have become part of the life of EU citizens. And in the morning when we had the grand opening, we also saw a couple of videos trying to depict the life of 2035. And there, it would have already happened. So that is where we want to move. And again, when I see the enthusiasm for these annual events here in Amsterdam, and all the vehicles and aircraft equipment, which is presented just outside this room, I'm more than optimistic that this vision can become a reality. But for this, we still have together a lot of work to do, and the strategy will serve as our compass to reach the goal. By setting the target to achieve 90% reduction in transport-related greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, the European Green Deal created a very ambitious objective for emission reductions. Our ambition is to bring drones to the center of EU urban mobility policies, along with other public and sustainable transport means. Last but not least, the new European Urban Mobility Framework, published in 2021, emphasizes the importance of urban public transport, efficient zero-emission last-mile delivery mobility options, as well as the need for more effective, sustainable urban mobility planning and urban mobility data. With these technologies reaching higher maturity, the challenge for innovative air mobility is to test autonomous flight capabilities in staged real-life conditions and to integrate them successfully into operational frameworks while minimizing their impact on the environment throughout their life cycle and striking the right balance between safety and security. The 19 flagship actions and recommendations set down in the drone strategy have been grouped under two main objectives. The first is to build a union market for drone services, and the second is to strengthen the union's civil security and defense industrial capabilities and synergies. At the same time, we seek to achieve the widest possible social acceptance of these new forms of mobility and increase airspace capacities. Our long-term goal is to integrate manned and unmanned traffic in the same airspace management system. These are quite bold statements and ambitious targets, but concretely, how do we get there? What actions do we plan to undertake? Out of these 19 flagship actions, let me mention 3 that are specifically linked to the development of innovative air mobility. First, adopting the rules for the certified category of drone operations, addressing the initial and continued airworthiness of drones, subject to certification, and the operational requirements applicable to manned VTOL-capable aircraft. This is already ongoing, with the first proposal for regulatory amendments published earlier this year. EASA is planning to revisit its entire legislative corpus over the coming decade to enable innovative air mobility, starting with parcel delivery and air taxis with a pilot on board to larger air cargo operations later. The first eVTOL certification projects are ongoing, and the plan is for the first airworthiness certificates to be delivered in 2024, or before August this year. Secondly, adopting rules for the design and operations of vertiports under the scope of EASA basic regulation. Again, this is something that has already been kick-started with the release of voluntary technical specification for vertiport design earlier this year. And last but not least, funding the creation of an online platform to support the sustainable innovative air mobility implementation by authorities, communities, municipalities, industry, and stakeholders. Here as well, work has started by EASA on developing an IAM hub, enabling engagement, alignment, and coordination between the different stakeholders. This platform should contribute to increasing public knowledge on the positive environmental impact of smaller drones. Services offered by smaller drones can be equally useful for societies. I think we are all well aware about that. Most of these user cases are quite mature and represent real business opportunities. Therefore, we also address their needs in the strategy. I'm proud to say that with the current regulatory framework and the new drone strategy, European Union will stay at the forefront of the development of unmanned aircraft operations. This is a clear and strong signal to the industry that the Commission is committed to create sustainable and predictable long-term business environment for the development of new innovative drones and drone services. Europe will be an attractive and safe place for drone startups and the related investments. I think we have experienced that already because the testing and trialing which goes on in different European cities, and again, I want to express my admiration to those cities who have been in the forefront and more open and also future-oriented. There you have companies coming all over the world. Many of the American companies have also been testing and trialing in European cities, like that one. According to our studies, if properly implemented, the strategy will allow the drone service market in Europe to reach a predicted value of 14.5 billion by 2030, with an annual growth rate of 12.3% and create 145,000 jobs in the EU. In fact, I just lately heard another figure from one of the big consultancies, which was done for the whole world by 2040, which predicted that the drone market value globally in 2040 might be $1.2 trillion. No doubt, if by 2030 we have succeeded, then I believe that it will take off in a different speed, and the next decade will, of course, bring even more interesting developments in this system. But in order to get there, this will require coordinated involvement of all key stakeholders, including civil aviation, regional, local, and law enforcement authorities, and so on. You can count on the full support and commitment of the European Commission to deliver the actions contained in the strategy, and I, in turn, count on you as well. On January 26 this year, we celebrated the applicability of the EU space regulatory framework, something which has been also mentioned in numerous occasions today. This was a significant milestone in the integration of drones into our airspace and sets the stage for the next phase of development and deployment of these technologies. The EU space regulatory framework has opened new opportunities for businesses and entrepreneurs, creating jobs and economic growth, and is a key element of the EU Single European Sky Strategy, or rather Digital European Sky Strategy, which aims to improve the performance and efficiency of the airspace. When I started, I mentioned one of the challenges for innovative air mobility, which is to test autonomous flight capabilities in staged real-life conditions. The strategy also includes measures that aim to support the European drone industry. This includes action as financing calls and better EU coordination for resources such as radio spectrum. Establishing synergies between civil-military industry is a new important objective, especially over the last 13 months. The cooperation between civil and military has become even more important than ever before. A good example of this is also the action of testing centers. As airspace and airfields facilities are scarce, maximum use should be made of military facilities to allow dual use of defined airspace volumes and to promote harmonized testing between civil and military operations and operators. The Commission therefore intends to set up an EU network of civil and defense drone test centers to facilitate exchanges between the civil and defense sectors. To simulate research and innovation, reduce existing strategic dependencies, and avoid of the emergence of new ones, we also envisage the definition of a voluntary European Trusted Drone label, which would assure users that the drones in question have been vetted and found to be sufficiently secure to be used for more critical or sensitive operations. Traffic management systems requiring secure elements brings him back to U-Space, where security and cyber resilience will be key element of the certification baseline for U-Space service providers. Also, with the more use of the digital solutions and digital technologies, cybersecurity becomes very much in the forefront of many of our concerns. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, as you can see, there are a lot of interesting things ongoing, and the event here is a perfect place to come together, exchange views, new ideas, and find new partners and friends. Heartfelt congratulations to all the organizers, to Rai and to Patrick, and all the EASA team for making this outstanding event happen. There are fascinating and thought-provoking discussions ahead, and I look forward to see the outcome of new ideas of these discussions. I wish you all a most interesting and engaging conference and the days here in wonderful city of Amsterdam. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Henrik. Our next speaker is a member of the European Parliament and the Vice Chair of the Tourism and Transport Committee. I'd like now to welcome Jan-Christophe Oetjen.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Patrick, dear Henrik, and perhaps on a personal note at the beginning, politics are made by people. And in Europe, policies in drones are working well because there are people committed to this industry. And there are two of them which made this progress happening in Europe. So thanks a lot, both of you. Ladies and gentlemen, the Amsterdam Drone Week is the global platform for sharing knowledge on current air solutions, potential innovations, and vital regulations in and for the sector. It's a recurring institution, and I'm very happy that after the restrictions of the last few years, rows are filled with people and halls are equipped with exhibitors and objects to touch. I euphorically welcome everyone present here on site and on the screens online. The EASA high-level conference under the roof of the Amsterdam Drone Week and hosted by RAI is an elementary part that brings together high-level representatives from EU institutions, member states and national aviation authorities, non-European national aviation authorities, state organizations involved in drones, but also in city planning, as already mentioned, and other representatives from the aviation industry. Under the motto, "Back to the future of safe UAS operations," let's start the time machine right away. I can only welcome the mixture and the diversity of the people coming together to contribute constructively to the discussions and debates, exchange knowledge, experiences, and promote closer networking of those involved in the drone ecosystem. As Vice President of the Transport and Tourism Committee in the European Parliament, I'm a big supporter of building an IAM ecosystem in Europe, and I'm pleased to address these opening remarks to you, and I thank you for the invitation, Patrick. One milestone recently has been the European Commission's adoption of the Drone Strategy 2.0. It's already mentioned. I highly welcome the publication that outlines 10 areas and 19 specific operational, technical, and financial initiatives which could unfold the development of the drone ecosystem in Europe. The ambition is high. By 2030, drones and the required ecosystem will become an accepted part of the life of EU citizens. And it's important to always remember, it's the citizens, ladies and gentlemen, at the heart of our engagement. Today, unmanned drones are already being used as everyday tools in an ever-widening range of data-intensive needs. They're used in many economic sectors, such as agriculture, construction, surveillance, film production, healthcare, medical emergency, energy, environment, public safety, and security. In order to launch and further develop IAM services that provide regular transport services of passengers and that deliver a contribution to the Green Deal objectives, further action and implementation is needed. The widespread use of drones could avoid dealing with, or even avoid, environmental disasters and make inspections of large infrastructure projects more effective. In order to make the drone market to grow across Europe and to allow access for all citizens and companies, the current use-based regulation needs to be implemented and further developed in all member states. This applies to applications in the civil sector as well as in the military sector. And as Henrik just mentioned, we are currently seeing the increased importance of this technology in Ukraine. The EU drone industry consists of early movers and diversified SMEs that are present here in Amsterdam the next days. In times of high inflation and uncertainties in the world, the development of the drone ecosystem provides growth impetus, and the new strategy predicts that the European drone markets could be valued at 14.5 billion euros and create 145,000 jobs by 2030. This has already been mentioned. The advantages are obvious. Drones can get their own airspace in Europe. That would be a novelty worldwide. Europe would be a trendsetter and a role model for the diverse use of drones. I think we can all agree that it takes full steam ahead and efforts from all stakeholders to fill the suspended vision of the strategy with life. Ladies and gentlemen, let me address some remarks directly to the representatives of the respective institutions that are working on it. These are people, not institutions working on it, but I want to address them. Because the representatives of the member states, they have to speed up in implementing the use-based regulation. Create structures for USSPs and CISPs that encourage competition and reward innovation. Any fragmentation of the system from one country to another are poison for a successful implementation. In case of competition law issues, these must be solved properly and in an uncomplicated manner and not on the back of companies. The European Commission is held responsible for ensuring that the goals it has set itself are actually met. The 19 flagship initiatives are a good approach that needs constant revision and adjustment. It's in fact that only then a viable drone ecosystem will contribute to leverage European research and innovation and entrepreneurship to achieve the objectives of the European Green Deal and Digital Europe as set out in the new growth strategy. Moving from demonstrations to large-scale commercial operations that present a business case must be the way forward. Appropriate financial resources should be provided by both the public and private sectors in line with the smart and sustainable mobility strategy, the action plan on synergies between civil defense and space industry, and strategies on EU security. I do expect that the European Commission will continue to develop drone regulation. This also includes the preparation of communications as a guideline for European solutions as the currently ongoing consultation to counter threats by unmanned drones. The European Aviation Safety Authority, EASA, has received the mandate to create the regulatory body that allows drones to fly safely and efficiently. By doing so, EASA is involving experts and representatives of civil aviation authorities and industry. One major outcome has been EASA's publication of the first set of acceptable means of compliance and guidance material to the EU space regulatory framework. These take up the latest state of art of the EU space concept, the systems and the technology. From my point of view, the knowledge and reputation of EASA is enabling guidance for member states and stakeholders in the implementation process. Furthermore, EASA is a facilitator in developing new European standard scenarios for low to medium risk aerial operations that would help SMEs to operate in the market. It's crucial for me that safety remains the #1 priority in aviation and that nothing will change that. Speed should not take precedence over safety. In particular, this does not apply to the speed in the competition with the Chinese and US market. It's the vital role of EASA as safety regulator that all operations are safe. The European Parliament represents the European citizens. On the one hand, this means setting framework conditions in ongoing legislative procedures that create added value for EU citizens and legal certainty for companies in the market. The aim is to acquire the advantage of the technology. Pricing, for instance. Common information services are needed to enable safe air traffic management of drones. The ongoing reform of Single European Sky, greetings, by the way, from my friend and colleague Marian Marinescu, aims to establish this to contain the cost of traffic management of drones and ensure a level playing field in the excess of pricing of necessary data. At the same time, a high level of cost transparency needs to be maintained, as otherwise cross-subsidization and distortion of competition can occur. I call on the Member States and the current Council presidency to contribute constructively to the ongoing negotiations. When thinking about eVTOL aircrafts in the future, the ongoing revision of the 10T regulation takes into account new technologies and innovations as passenger and freight drones and last-mile drone operations. On the other hand, the role of the European Parliament, and myself in particular, consists in the dialogue with citizens. The aim is to remove obstacles and concerns, such as those about security and safety. Participation is key, as the citizens must support these new, partly disruptive technologies. When traveling back to the past, the invention of the car, cruising in unknown speeds, has been scary for many people. They will be exposed to UAM operations more than before while walking through the streets, commuting to their workplace. And to fit public expectations, users are gradually confronted to new solutions, and they will learn how new these will help them to fulfill their desires and needs in everyday life. Reliable operations, such as drone delivery in rural areas or traffic accident reconnaissance drones, do have a business case. There's added value for users, and the market will be able to expand. Citizens need to be able to see and experience drones in aerial vehicles in action, developing a feeling for them as experienced today. Questions about noise and the ecological footprint must also be answered. The EASA study on the acceptance of urban air mobility has been important to obtain information about this new market from the point of view of the general public. The study, which is unique in the scope, surveyed 4,000 citizens in 6 European urban areas. It concluded on an overall positive initial attitude to UAM throughout the European Union. Demonstrations and dialogue are beneficial, and authorities should be supported in setting up and implementing new mobility concepts that include drones and air mobility services. As Hendrik said, there are some going forward, seeing opportunities, and some are scared. Let's work with them, with those who see the opportunities. These innovative air mobility must be communicated and acceptable to the citizens. I therefore highly support, on the basis of an initiative by the European Parliament, the funding of the European Commission to develop a sustainable IAM hub by EASA. Authorities, cities, industry and other stakeholders can use this as a platform to seek information and exchange best practice within this cross-sectorial governance. Trust in safety and trust in legislators and supervisory authorities, such as EASA, must not be violated. No effort should be avoided, otherwise the market will never develop. Citizens expect that all the relevant authorities work together to make this happen. And that's the reason why we are all together today. I see it as a task for the European Parliament and for me personally to find ways to create this trust. At this point, for example, the voluntary European Trusted Drone label could contribute to the sense of security as well, similar to a well-known seal of quality. Furthermore, access to drone operations must be made easier. Training measures and courses for remote pilots and pilots of VTOL aircrafts would help here. Lengthy and bureaucratic licensing procedures to conduct drone operations would increase neither service acceptance nor the frequency we need in order to create a business case. Why don't we collect data and set up a transparent database with key indicators that allow to identify developing trends and could better quantify and describe the EU drone market? Ladies and gentlemen, the future of drone operations is now. I'm happy to be here with you, to meet, to discuss, and to bundle all forces to make this time travel a reality. The European Parliament will contribute to remain Europe as a pioneer and trendsetter in the international drone market. And I'm wishing you a successful event. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is indeed already seizing the opportunities that are offered by drones and works for a company that is not only using but also developing drones, using them in real situations, working on the commercial models for this. I'd now very much like us all to welcome from Wing, the Head of Policy and Government Affairs, Margaret Nagel. Thank you.
Executive Director Key and EASA, thank you for inviting me to speak today on behalf of Wing. It's an honor to be here. I look forward to the high-level conference on drones and Amsterdam Drone Week each year because of the participation of so many influential regulators, policymakers, and industry participants as we look at what happened in the past year and as we look to what must be done in the year to come. We appreciate you bringing us together this year and every year to make the event so successful. I think this year is especially meaningful to Wing because we recognize that our industry is at the precipice of scaled UAS operations after many years of hard work. Whether it is continuing to shape first-of-kind regulatory structures, creating U-space airspace across Europe, mapping standards, digitizing and automating interoperability, or collaborating towards USSP certification, this is truly a defining year for all of us in the room. Our theme for the next 2 days is Back to the Future of Safe UAS Operations, and I see this as a great reminder from EASA that if implemented correctly, the future UAS environment will bring new and enduring safety benefits to our airspace system. For several years, industry has asked EASA and the Commission to provide more predictability and pragmatism around when and how to fly in European airspace. And EASA and the Commission have responded by building a regulatory framework meeting aircraft operator and airspace needs. We have seen regulations materialize and actual drone operations occurring on a regular basis under this framework. The Commission's 945 and 947 regulations are the basis for beyond line of sight operations across all EASA member states. For instance, Wing has used the mechanism in these regulations to gain operational approvals to fly in Finland, and has since extended that approval to Ireland last year and to Switzerland earlier this month. All of our operations are conducted with a small, lightweight, roughly 5-kilogram aircraft that you can see over here to my right. And now, with the 664 regulation on U-Space, we are addressing airspace needs, particular to the low-altitude, non-passenger environment. And with this, I see that the final pieces needed for our business coming together. We believe that U-Space airspace represents the opportunity for UAS operators to fly safely, routinely, and predictably in larger areas of shared airspace instead of by waiver or restriction. More to the point, we believe that U-Space services connect drone operators with the opportunity to build a sustainable and durable drone business. Wing has begun certification efforts for its Open Sky UTM services and is eager to complete this process in 2023, and we hope to join a rank of other approved USSPs that can enable diversified and interoperable drone operations across Europe. While everyone recognizes that there remain challenges to be resolved on our way to full and harmonized U-Space implementation, we must remain committed to building U-Space services and to designating U-Space airspace if we want to see the industry succeed. In the meantime, I would challenge those in this room to continue to find opportunities to use U-Space services more creatively as we work towards full implementation of the regulation. We believe it is possible to build a concept of use applying certified U-Space services to operations within controlled or uncontrolled airspace over populated areas as we work towards more U-Space airspace. The benefits of starting early and getting these concepts correct can help our industry bridge to full U-Space airspace while opening up the possibility of large or possibly even nationwide ability to fly and meet customer demand. We hope that this week and over the coming months, we will have these conversations to keep momentum moving forward, because what is at stake is a safe and thriving industry. At scale, we know the benefits of drone delivery, things like increased safety, reduced environmental impact, and an increased access to goods, to name a few, become far more meaningful. I firmly believe that this is why many of us do what we do every day. We believe that the EU regulatory framework will help drone operators reach scale and support business across Europe. And we at Wing have experience in small areas today with scale, completing up to 1,000 flights a day in our operations in Australia, and we've prepared a short video to show you what a vision for global scale looks like. When we think about scale in our operations, we don't believe that we will replace other modes of transportation, but rather by focusing on fast delivery of small packages, we will complement other delivery modes in a multimodal delivery environment. We recently announced a major investment in an approach to increasing the scale of delivery we call the Wing Delivery Network. The Wing Delivery Network uses a combination of logistics software, lightweight aircraft and charging pads, and auto-loading hardware that allows organizations to safely and easily integrate drone delivery into their retail or delivery infrastructure as it exists. It can also use use-based services to support automated compliance and interoperable operations. And while we are focused on technology advancements, we remain dedicated to our relationships with the communities where we operate. A critical part of building successful operations and businesses is community engagement. We see this work taking root with individual stakeholders, as well as in collaborations like the EASA IAM Hub Task Force, which is putting together a central information point of playbooks for all types of stakeholders in the UAS and eVTOL landscape. At Wing, we've published our best practices for community engagement based on our multiple years of operations and based on our educate, listen, respond framework. And I hope fellow operators and other stakeholders will share their best practices so we can learn from each other how we succeed in providing valuable and accepted services to communities. A survey of local residents where we operate today, conducted by Virginia Tech, cited that 87% of local residents had positive sentiments about drone delivery. We continue to see incredible buy-in from communities once they've experienced the possibility of drone delivery up close. What excites me the most about what I see happening in Europe is that the regulatory framework is in place today and is being used in operations by many people in this room. But I also recognize that hard work remains to fully realize the opportunity, particularly with use-based and with use-based airspace from an implementation perspective. We can't let a perfect vision for the future prevent meaningful progress today. I am confident if we stick to a safe and pragmatic approach, progress is possible now as we work through important implementation details. Getting to safe, scaled operations that allow our industry to flourish and provide benefits to community is a collaborative effort requiring everyone here today, EASA, the Commission, member states, industry, and communities. It is time for us all to take the next leap forward by stepping up to this opportunity. I sincerely hope that next year, when we gather in Amsterdam, this group is able to discuss the game-changing development of starting to fly in use-based airspace in Europe. Thank you.